When the weather is colder, sometimes I want to curl up right inside of the casserole dish. There is nothing like making a nice hot casserole on a cold winter day. Welcome to Meals with Maria. Today I have the top 10 best casserole dishes that I have made. They are so delicious and they are something that you will love to make in the wintertime. Also, they're a great thing to make ahead. Pop in the good old refrigerator there and then bring it out when it's time for dinner and just pop it in the oven. That's the great thing that I love about making a casserole. Also, it's kind of like all in one sometimes. So you got your protein, your carb, and your vegetable all in one spot. So it makes it super easy for feeding a family. I hope you enjoy these and gets lots of inspiration. I just want to take a minute here to thank the sponsor of today's video, FlexiSpot. They are a standing desk company, and I have been a long time huge fan of standing desks. Back since when I used to work in the corporate world, I would always grab one if they had one to offer because it is the healthiest, safest way to kind of save your back, and it's really good for you in general because you're kind of burning more calories. It's good to be on your feet instead of sitting at your desk all day. So if you do struggle with back pain like I do, I'm, cooking, being with the kids all the time, my back is killing me most of the time, unfortunately, as much as I wish it wasn't. So the FlexiSpot Pro Plus Standing Desk E7 that I recently got was amazing. It's a 55 by 28 bamboo desktop with a white frame, and it's really been a game changer for me. Not only is it stylish and easy to put together, but also allows me to relieve that pressure by standing and adjusting to the optimal position when I'm sitting. So the premium desk keypad and buttons make it easy to move up and down, and the desk even has presets, so it's easy to remember the perfect height for you standing and sitting. It's important to note to use the correct posture when you're using the standing desk. I actually need to kind of get either a new monitor or a different way to set my laptop up because mine's not quite right. Your hands should be at 90 to 100 degrees and your eyes should be 40 to 75 centimeters from the screen. You should be looking down a minimum of 20 degrees. You can see on the screen here what that looks like. Investing in your health is worth it, and FlexiSpot comes out on top when comparing to the 3 standing desks worldwide. If you look at this diagram, it shows that they have A's in most of the categories where the other 2 do not. You don't want to wait. Click the exclusive link in my description box today and get yours. Thank you so much for learning about FlexiSpot. This is an amazing shepherd's pie I'm so happy to share. So I took 1.5 onions. I'm trying to get to about a cup of chopped yellow onion, but you really can't go, too crazy with this. Have as much as you want. It's delicious. Then you want to peel 1.5 to 2 pounds of russet potatoes. I have 2 rather large ones right here that I am just peeling up, and then I am going to dice them, and those are going to be for the mashed potatoes on top of the shepherd's pie. Now, you do not have to use potatoes if you don't have them. Potatoes are a great budget item. They are relatively inexpensive. I can usually find 5 or 10 pounds for $2 to $5, and they go so well with almost every meal. But if you don't have them or you don't have the time or whatnot, it is super easy to just buy the potato flakes. Those are also extremely inexpensive, and they still taste great on a shepherd's pie. So I'm just going to cook my onions up over a medium-high heat with some oil. You can choose the oil of your choice. It's not going to make a huge difference as far as the meal goes. You just want to cook the onions for about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally. Then you want to add in your pound of ground beef, or you could use ground lamb, or you could use ground turkey. Now, turkey can be a cheaper alternative, especially like I was talking about those tubes of turkey. And I find that especially in shepherd's pie, it is extremely cost effective and delicious tasting, not a problem at all as far as a swap goes. I have also used lentils in a shepherd's pie, and I will post the video down below where I do use a lentil as an alternative in a shepherd's pie. It's an extreme grocery budget challenge, and it can save you big bucks. Not my absolute favorite way to make it, but it is good, especially if you like lentils. It is a great alternative. I was able to buy some ground beef on sale for, I believe, a $2.49 a pound and put it in the freezer. So that is the ground beef that I am using in this video. And then to your ground beef, you want to add in a half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of dried thyme leaves, 2 teaspoons of dried parsley flakes, 1 teaspoon of dried rosemary, and a half a teaspoon of ground pepper. Let the meat and the spices cook for about 6 to 8 minutes until the meat is fully browned, and make sure to stir that occasionally. You can see that I'm mashing mine up with this fun little meat masher. I will put a link to this down below, but I've also heard that they have them at the Dollar Tree. So I haven't seen them myself, but that is quite a good deal if they do have one. To my cooked meat, I am adding a little bit of this Mushroom Company umami from Trader Joe's just because I thought it would taste really good in this, and it did. So just an option if you have like an extra spice that you like to add, go ahead and add that. And then once it's cooked, we're adding 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce and 2 cloves of garlic. I'm going to stir to combine and cook for about a minute. To the mixture, you want to add 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour and 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. Now, as I mentioned before with garlic, go ahead and use garlic powder if that's all that you have. You don't have to add fresh garlic. It'll still taste delicious. Now, tomato paste is very inexpensive and a great thing to have on hand as far as budget meals go. It can add a lot of depth of flavor to meals that you make without adding a lot of extra cost. If you open a can of tomato paste and you're like, I'm not going to use the rest of this, you should throw that into a small plastic bag and put it in the freezer. It freezes really well, and you can just take the frozen tomato paste and put it right into whatever you're cooking, and it will cook up in like 2 seconds. So I usually try and make like 2 tablespoon containers of tomato paste out of those cans so that I don't waste anything. If you really don't have any tomato paste, you can always use 3 tablespoons of tomato sauce in place of 1 tablespoon of tomato paste. You may want to just cook that down on the stove first, and that will still give your food a lot of depth of flavor, and it should be a pretty good swap out. I did it the other day and it was no problem at all. Just want to stir this until it's well incorporated and there are no clumps of the tomato paste left. At this point, you want to add in all of your frozen veg. So I have like a whole container here of peas and carrots and green beans. I think the recipe actually just calls for 1 cup of mixed frozen peas and carrots, and I said forget it, we're putting it all in. I don't mind putting like a full mixed vegetable in. If you're like a traditionalist, I get it, like go ahead and just use the peas and carrots, but this is what I had on hand, so I put the whole thing in. You also want to put in 1 cup of beef broth. Now I usually keep beef bouillon on hand because that is so inexpensive. Here is what the filling for the shepherd's pie looks like when it's all finished, and the flavor on this is incredible. In the meantime, you do want to cook up your potatoes. So I know we made those a long time ago, but I just boiled the potatoes in a large pot. I covered them with water and I brought them to a boil, reduced it to a simmer, and then cooked the potatoes until they were fork tender, about 10 or 15 minutes. Drained them and added 8 tablespoons of unsalted butter, about a cup of half and half, a half a teaspoon of garlic powder, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a 1/4 teaspoon of cracked ground pepper. And you may want to add some Parmesan cheese to this as well. I'm just using a hand masher to mash these up. I know some people use like a hand mixer, and that helps a lot. Again, you don't have to do this. The problem with making homemade mashed potatoes and the cost of things is that butter and milk are expensive, and you could definitely swap out the butter for margarine or something less expensive. Maybe put half the butter in, but I mean the butter is like what makes it taste delicious. So that's kind of what's tough about making like your own homemade mashed potatoes. The mashed potatoes are cheap, but adding milk and butter to them really does add when you could just use like a potato flake and add water, and that's a lot more cost efficient. So just your choice, however you want to do it. I'll tell you, the buttery mashed potatoes are absolutely amazing, but it's still good with a flake mashed potato as well. And so we are just going to add in the filling to a 13 by 9.
Hello guys, I'm making shepherd pie.
So as you can see, Julian has joined me for this portion of the video, and he wanted to get helping with the shepherd's pie. So he's going to help me put the mashed potatoes over the top and just kind of dollop the potatoes all over the pie and try and spread it evenly. Once your potatoes are on the pie, you want to cook this at 400 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes. And you may want to put a dish below it to make sure it doesn't bubble over, because when this does come out, it's like super bubbly and amazing. The next recipe is called a Salsa Verde chicken casserole, and I've been looking forward to this one for a while because it just seemed different, and I was excited to try it. So you just want to start off with a couple of ripe avocados. I was lucky. These were like perfect avocados. I was actually kind of sad to put them in a casserole because they would have been just so good, but they were perfect for this casserole, so, you know, it works. And then I'm just slicing in half a lime because we are going to need some lime juice for this recipe. While you're cutting up your avocados and your lime, you're going to want to cook 2 cups of rice uncooked. So you take 2 uncooked cups of rice and cook those up according to your package directions. So if you have 5-minute rice, that's good. If you have regular rice, make sure that you have time to make your rice ahead of time, but you want to start with 2 cups. And then I added 1 4-ounce can of chopped green chilies and 3/4 a cup of salsa verde. Now, I know you can get like a better or like a cheaper brand of salsa verde, I believe at Walmart. Where I went, I could only find the Tostitos, which was a little more expensive. So I think you can find a deal on that depending on where you go. And you just want to mash all of that together. Then you want to add about a tablespoon of fresh lime juice. I just used one of the halves that I cut, and that seemed like the perfect amount. Now you want to mix in your warm cooked rice. If you're going to serve this right away, you want to make sure that that rice is still warm. If you're going to serve it later, like I did, it doesn't really matter. I ended up making my casserole, putting it in the refrigerator, and then cooking it for dinner later in the day. And sometimes that really helps me out to kind of make a casserole ahead of time. And then that way I know all I have to do is pop it in the oven. When I do that, I do have to cook it a little bit longer because it's already cold. So it does help to take out the casserole and put it on the counter for a few minutes before you put it in the oven, or just cook it a little bit longer in the oven, or both. You kind of have to watch it and make your own judgment about how warm you think it should be. Once that's all mixed together in a separate bowl, you want to take 2 cups of cooked chicken, which I had plenty of from the chicken the night before, and 1 cup of sour cream. It says light sour cream. I have whole fat because that's kind of what we like to use around our house. Your choice of how you want to do it. It turned out great with full fat. And then 1 can of cream of chicken soup. Again, it says reduced fat. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like a healthy meal, but go for it, whatever type you want to eat. I actually ended up using up my last can of cream of chicken from the Dollar Tree, which I will not be buying anymore because it's way too expensive. You can get a way better deal on it at Walmart or Aldi. And so they have like a bigger can there. You really just want to use a 10 3/4 ounce can, so I didn't use the entire thing. Now you just want to grease a 9x13 pan, and we're going to put the entire rice mixture over the bottom of the pan, and then on top of that, you're going to put your chicken mixture. And then once you have your chicken mixture on top, sprinkle over 1 cup of Monterey Jack cheese and cook this in the oven at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. And that's if everything was warm when you were creating it. So if it's not, and you took it out of the fridge, I did about 45 minutes, and that was the perfect amount of time. Topping this with a little bit of diced tomato and a few tablespoons of chopped cilantro, and it turned out phenomenal. This was so amazing. This next recipe is for easy oven baked chicken and rice, and I love this because you're cooking your chicken and your rice at the same time, and it's all going in the oven. It's kind of a set it and forget it once you get done with the first few steps. So you want to take 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, 2 teaspoons of light brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, and 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme, a teaspoon of paprika, and 1 teaspoon of salt. And you can also add a 1/4 teaspoon of cracked black pepper if you'd like. And as you guys know, I keep it real, so there's something on my sleeve here, definitely from a kid or a baby, and it is what it is. That's how I was cooking that day, not cleaned up. And then you want to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to this mixture, and we're going to make like a paste, and this is going to go over all of our chicken thighs. The recipe calls for 6 bone-in, skin-on chicken thighs, and actually it says you can use bone-in or bone-out, so I happen to have the bone-in ones, and that's what I'm dealing with today because those are the ones that are so cheap lately. Now you can be dainty and use a fork and try and mix everything up that way, but I'm just going to get in there with my hands, and that is my recommendation because that is going to help you really get a full coverage on these thighs, and
I think that's what makes everything taste so good. So this flavor on this seasoning is amazing, and just go ahead and make sure that the flavor and the seasoning is all massaged into those chicken thighs. For the rice, you're going to need 1 chopped onion, so we're going to bing bang boom chop this onion up real quick. Everything is going to be cooked in your favorite 13x9 pan, so go ahead and pour some oil or shortening or whatever you want to do to grease your pan. You can just spray some olive oil spray in there if you have that. Go ahead and add the onion to the 13x9 pan, followed by 2 tablespoons of butter, 1, 2, 3, 4 cloves of minced garlic, and 1.5 cups of hot chicken broth. Now I use chicken bouillon, so I just heated up my water and then put my bouillon in, and that worked out fine. If you need to cook your chicken broth ahead of time so that you're ready, go ahead and heat that hot chicken broth up before you get started on this. You're also going to need 1.25 cups of hot water, and I added that when I added the chicken bouillon since it was all mixed together anyway. But 1.5 cups of hot chicken broth and 1.25 cups of hot water. Sometimes I forget to do things in like a normal order, so at this point I'm adding 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Probably should have done that earlier, but it doesn't really matter because now we're going to mix in the butter and melt and mix everything together really well. To that mixture, add 1.5 cups of long grain white rice. I'm pretty sure I got this bag at the Dollar Tree, so you know that I use what I get there, and that makes this so cheap. So if you're using chicken bouillon, you're using 1 onion, a little bit of oil. If you don't have olive oil, go ahead and just use regular vegetable oil. That's going to be totally fine. If you don't have garlic, go ahead and use garlic powder. And if you need to, use margarine. So you can really cut down the price on this, and the flavor is still going to be there. It's going to be absolutely delicious. Everything is mixed really well. Arrange the thighs on the dish over the rice. And then we're going to cover this with foil and bake it for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes is up, uncover the chicken, and then it says spray it with oil. I don't even think that I did that, and bake for an additional 25 to 30 minutes or until the chicken is cooked fully through to the bone and everything is soft. At the end, you do want to take this out, change the oven settings to broil, and then brown the chicken for a few minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes over the top, and that will give you that crispy skin. Take the chicken thighs off the top and then mix around the rice. And then you want to cover it back up with tinfoil for 10 minutes and let it sit for all the flavors to meld together. This meal was so amazing and so delicious. You may want to serve it with a vegetable, but it was late that night and I just ate it as it was with the rice, and it was so delicious. Next up, we're going to make a poor man's lasagna.
Now, this uses a penne pasta instead of a lasagna noodle, and I think that that's one of the reasons why it's considered a budget meal. A regular penne or rigatoni will go on sale for down to like 33 cents a box, where lasagna noodles are usually not included in that, so they're usually more expensive. Then I'm going to brown up a pound of ground beef or ground turkey. Again, if you have ground turkey on hand, or you got it on sale, or you can get it for $2.20 at Walmart, that's a lot cheaper than a ground beef. And this is the perfect recipe to switch that up with because it's in a casserole anyway, so you can't really taste the flavor difference. As a sub for ricotta in this, you're using 16 ounces of cottage cheese and 8 ounces of softened cream cheese. And then you want to mix that into your cooked penne. Now, unfortunately, I missed getting that on camera because sometimes that happens. It's just real life. You want to layer a 9x13 pan with half of this pasta mixture, half of your meat mixture, and half of a 24-ounce can of pasta sauce. You can get pasta sauce for as cheap as 84 cents at Walmart these days, so you can make this pretty inexpensive. I also found that with a regular lasagna, you're using 2 to 3 times that amount of pasta sauce. And in this, you don't need quite as much, and it still turned out really, really good. Then you want to repeat these same 3 steps with the remaining pasta, meat, and sauce, and then top this with 1.5 cups of shredded mozzarella. I did take a look at some lasagna recipes to compare in the amount of ingredients and prices, and a lot of lasagna recipes are looking for up to 2 pounds of mozzarella, 2 pounds of ground beef or sausage, 2 to 3 jars of marinara sauce. So I felt like, I mean, yes, it's less, there's less going on here, but I felt like to fill the same area, we spent a lot less money and there were just a lot less ingredients. You do want to bake this at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. This is also a great make ahead or freeze ahead meal. It is super easy to just make and pop in your refrigerator and then pop it in the oven later. I feel like this had all the flavors and all the goodness of lasagna without the cost. I will be making this in the future for sure. Like, this was a huge hit in my house and I just loved it. The next recipe is for cabbage roll casserole. Now this recipe calls for 1 pound of ground beef and 1/2 pound of ground pork. And I used about 3/4 pound of ground beef, and I didn't actually supplement anything. I just cut down the beef selection, and I knew that there was gonna be plenty of other hearty ingredients in this recipe, so I wasn't gonna have to actually add any more meat, and you wouldn't even notice. You wanna start off by dicing 1 large onion. Like with the other recipes, if you don't have a fresh onion, go ahead and use onion powder. That's gonna be absolutely fine. And then you want 1 to 2 heads of cabbage. I actually just had 1, and I thought that's gonna be plenty of cabbage for us. If you don't have a fresh cabbage, you can always grab like a bag of that coleslaw mix. That makes things even easier, and I often find those on sale. I made that substitution in a crock pot meal years ago, and it was absolutely delicious. So if you have a coleslaw mix or a head of cabbage, either will do. You wanna slice the cabbage into like 1-inch chunks. Then you want to brown your ground beef in a skillet over medium heat. While the beef was browning, I added a couple tablespoons of oil to a large stock pot, and then I added the cabbage. And I just cooked this over medium-high heat until the cabbage was tender. The cabbage will cook in the casserole, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but this is a great opportunity to kind of get that cabbage starting to wilt down. When the ground beef is done browning, remove it from your pan and add 1 to 2 tablespoons more of oil. Then you want to add your sliced onions and cook over medium heat until the onion is translucent. It's about 4 to 5 minutes. Add in 2 tablespoons of minced garlic, 2 teaspoons of minced thyme, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and then saute for a couple minutes more. Now you want to add in 1 can of petite diced tomatoes, undrained, 1 15-ounce can of tomato sauce, return your beef to the pan, and add in 1 cup of uncooked long grain white rice. Follow that with 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire sauce, and then 1 to 2 teaspoons of chicken or beef bouillon, and 3/4 cup of water. And I actually just used beef bone broth, and I used 3/4 cup of that instead. So either way that you want to do that, you can save money by just using the bouillon. If you have broth on hand, go ahead and use that. It's really about using whatever option works best for you. Make sure to add salt and pepper to taste, and then mix everything together. And you want to bring this to a boil and then let it simmer until it's thickened for about 15 to 18 minutes. I did mine for a full 18 minutes. I'm laughing at myself. I'm like, wardrobe change. It was getting into the evening time, and I was making this actually ahead of time for the night before, which is something I love about casseroles like this. This was the perfect make-ahead casserole. So you just want to take that cooked cabbage and add that to the bottom of a sprayed 13x9 pan, and then top that with your rice and beef mixture. You want to cover this tightly with tin foil, and you can either put it in the fridge to cook tomorrow, or you can cook it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you want to take it out and you want to put about 1 to 2 cups of shredded Monterey Jack cheese on top of it. And then you cook it for another 7 to 10 minutes until the cheese is melted. I actually broiled mine, and wow, I love that broil on the top of the cheese. So completely your choice how you want to melt that cheese and how you like it, but broiled was delicious. This was a huge hit in my family. Everybody loved it, and I loved that there was healthy cabbage in it and that it was a make-ahead meal for me. There was no feeling like you needed more ground beef by any means. And next up, we have Lazy Man's Lasagna. This one is amazing. In my case, I am going to be using frozen raviolis that I got for $1 each package, so 2 packages on sale. You can also get those frozen raviolis at the Dollar Tree for $1.25, so they are still a budget pick. You want to start off by browning a pound of ground beef, ground turkey, or even mushrooms if you want to go a vegetarian route. You could also skip this step altogether and go without a protein or vegetable option. I've also opted to cook a chopped onion along with my ground beef, but you could always use onion powder for this as well.
Grab a 13 by 9 pan and your favorite jar of pasta sauce, or the cheapest jar of pasta sauce is absolutely fine too. Whatever you have on hand. You can also make your own. I'll put a simple marinara sauce recipe down below in the description box if you do want to make that. And then we're going to put our raviolis over a little bit of sauce in the bottom of the pan. Now you want to check your raviolis ahead of time. Mine were super frozen and frozen together, so it took a little while. Look at that. It's like a whole hunk. And it took a little while for them to defrost and get separated. So I would recommend checking those if they are stuck together like mine were. Go ahead and leave those out on the counter for a little bit to defrost before you start assembling your lasagna. Place half of your raviolis in a single layer, still frozen or even a little bit defrosted is okay. Then put a quarter to a half a cup of your red sauce over your raviolis. That's your choice on how saucy you like your lasagna. I do like mine a little bit more saucy, so I like to add a little extra if I can. And then put all of your beef or mushroom mixture over that sauce. And then you could also use sausage in this. I forgot to mention that. Sausage is also a great option, especially if you can find that on sale. Then you want to add a second layer of raviolis and just use up the rest of those from the 2 packages. And then you want to add another quarter to half a cup of sauce over the top of those raviolis. I am going to grab a little extra because, like I said, I like mine extra saucy. At this point, you can add shredded mozzarella or do what I'm doing and cover it and put it in the fridge for tomorrow. So I actually made mine ahead of time. This is an amazing make-ahead casserole, and it will automatically save you money because you're not ordering out, you're not ordering pizza on a busy night, you're not eating fast food. You have something ready to go in the oven when you get back from whatever kids practice you were at or whatever event you were going to, and you are ready to eat. When you are ready to bake this, bake it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes and make sure to cover that with some shredded cheese. I just don't like to do it before I put the tin foil on because I could spray the top and make sure it doesn't stick, but for me, it's just easier to put it on when it's time to put in the oven. So this is what it looks like when it comes out. For some reason, my cheese didn't melt really well, and I think it might have been the brand, but either way, it tasted absolutely delicious. This was a fabulous meal. We served it with some Texas toast on the side, and it was a hit for the whole family, and that's really all I care about. This next recipe is for chicken bacon ranch casserole, and holy moly, it is so good. So you want to start off by cooking up some pasta. I'm using a 10-ounce box of penne, but you could use like rigatoni, macaroni. I would say any noodle with a hole through the middle will be good. I'm also cooking up some bacon because obviously chicken bacon ranch casserole. But if you do not have bacon on hand, it is always okay to use these bacon pieces. I grabbed these at the Dollar Tree, so they are super inexpensive and they are great to keep on hand. I've also heard it's great to keep like a big bag of real bacon bits that you get from like Costco or one of those big box stores. I've never had them myself, but I heard they are a good option and a cheap budget alternative. The good news is if you are using real bacon like this, you only need 4 pieces. So I'm cooking up a little bit more for something else, but using only 4 pieces really cuts the cost down, and then you can use the rest of the package of bacon for a different meal. So it really stretches out something that's actually kind of a more expensive item. Once your pasta is done cooking, I've actually removed the pasta from that pot and using the same pot to make my meal. Over a medium heat, you want to melt in 2 tablespoons of butter. To that, I'm adding 3 cloves of minced garlic, and I'm just going to cook that for even less than a minute, just until fragrant. Now, I was starting to get a little nervous because my butter was already starting to brown, but that's okay. I think if I were to do this again, I might not use the same pot that I used for the pasta that was already hot, but the recipe did recommend to do it, so I tried it, and you live, you learn. To that mixture, add 2 tablespoons of ranch seasoning. So I'm just using the Hidden Valley ranch seasoning and a half a tablespoon of flour. And then you want to mix that all around because we're basically making a roux pretty much out of that ranch dressing mix. And you do get that flavor in this pasta. So totally worth it to do it this way. Once that is well mixed, add in 1 pint of heavy cream, and you just kind of want to whisk this around as you're pouring it in to make sure everything is well incorporated. As you can see, it was getting a little brown. I'm like, what's going on here? Not a problem at all. Like, this did not turn out burnt, and as I added more cream in, it incorporated just fine. So I don't really know if that's like a normal thing because I was using the ranch mix or not, but if you run into that issue and you're nervous, do not be nervous. Just continue to add that cream in, make sure that everything is well mixed, bring it up to a boil, and then just kind of cook it for about a minute until it thickens. At this point, you want to remove it from the heat and add in about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Stir until the cheese completely melts. And then you want to add in your chicken. So I'm using a couple of those chicken breasts that I grilled up the day before and just cutting them into 1-inch cubes. You can definitely use a rotisserie chicken or some canned chicken here. That's a great option. And then add in your cooked pasta. You want to make sure that was cooked al dente. Mix everything together. Then you want to grease a 9 by 13 pan and pour that entire casserole right in there. I'm going to top it with 1 cup of shredded mozzarella and 4 slices of crumbled cooked bacon, or you could use those real bacon bits or the bacon bits from McCormick. That would be totally fine. We're going to pop this in the oven at 375 degrees for 20 minutes. I sprinkled a little bit of parsley on this before serving and served it with a salad from our garden, and it was absolutely amazing. I actually said to my husband, I can't make this again. Like, I should not make this again because we couldn't stop eating it. Like, it was almost bad. So, but no, it was good. It's definitely going on the family favorites. Julian said it was a 100 and he loved it. This next recipe was totally new to me. It's a leftover pulled pork tater tot casserole, and it did not disappoint. I have to admit, I had 3 servings of it. It was that good. So you just want to finely dice a small onion. Shocker, we're starting with onion yet again. But hey, if you don't have onion, what do you use? Onion powder, totally fine. Then you need a green bell pepper, and you want to chop that as well. I happen to have one for my garden, so that worked out really nicely. But if you don't have green bell pepper, you can use whatever color you like, or you could even probably use some roasted peppers from the Dollar Tree. And if you don't have that, I think this casserole would be just fine without peppers. It's not a big deal. Add about a tablespoon of oil to a large skillet over medium heat, and then you can add 8 ounces of mushrooms as well as your cut up peppers and onions. And we're going to saute these for about 10 to 12 minutes until everything is mostly cooked. In the meantime, you want to mix together 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of cumin, a half a teaspoon of paprika, and a 1/4 to 1/8 teaspoon of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of salt, and a teaspoon of black pepper. Add a half a cup of shredded cheese and mix well. Now, the original recipe calls for 6 to 8 cups of pulled pork, but I'm just using what I have left, which is about 3 cups, and it was plenty of pulled pork for this recipe. So however much you have left, go ahead and just throw that in there. You'll find that with the veggies, everything else, it's plenty of meat. Once your vegetables are sauteed, go ahead and add that to that mixture as well. And I'm also going to add in 1 drained can of corn. Pour your mixture into the bottom of a greased 13 by 9 pan. Then you'll need a 2-pound bag of tater tots, and I'm just going to top my casserole with rows of tater tots. And then we're going to use 1 cup of shredded cheddar or whatever type of cheese that you have and top it with that. Bake your casserole at 375 degrees for 35 to 40 minutes until it is bubbly and the tater tots are crispy. And this is absolutely phenomenal. I was weary of it when I first made it. I was like, this looks kind of weird. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but it was absolutely amazing. Like I said, I had 3 servings. I could not stop going back, and I had it for leftovers the next day. This serves, wow, I think this serves like 10. It has plenty and plenty of food.
This next meal is a lazy chicken parm.
And if you've ever made chicken parm before, you know that it's a process of breading and frying, and it is absolutely delicious. But this is a really good version. It's super easy and it's actually pretty healthy. You want to start off with your large 13x9 pan and then add in a jar of tomato sauce. And when I added my jar, I thought, you know what, I need a little bit more. So I added the jar, and then I added about a half a cup of shredded Parmesan cheese, mix that together, and then you'll see I add about another half a jar of tomato sauce. It's kind of up to you, but the chicken is going to cook in that sauce, so I wanted to make sure that there was plenty to cover the entire dish. Then you want about 1 pound to 2 pounds of thinly sliced chicken breasts. Depending on how busy you are and how much time you have, you can just take whole chicken breasts and cut those in half. That's what I did. You definitely don't want to use whole chicken breasts because it's going to take way too long to cook in the oven, and it's likely going to turn out pretty tough. You want to make sure that you fully coat your chicken breasts in that pasta sauce. Once you've done this, cover your pan with foil tightly and bake at 375 degrees for 30 minutes. After that 30 minutes is up, go ahead and remove the foil and shake about another half a cup of Parmesan cheese right over your chicken. And then you also want to place some shredded mozzarella cheese. I use probably about 3/4 of a cup, and you'll notice that on one of them I did not put it on the chicken because my oldest son hates melted cheese for some reason, so I specially remembered to make him one without melted shreddy cheese this time, and he was very, very pleased by that. Then you want to place this back in the oven for another 10 minutes or until your cheese is melted and your chicken is bubbly. It was so wonderful. Like I said, this is so healthy because you're not breading anything and you're actually not even using any oil. So you're using just plain chicken, sauce, and cheese, and it's delicious. I served it with a little bit of bow tie or farfalle pasta on the side, and I made an Olive Garden salad. This is so good, so delicious, and we really enjoyed it. It's definitely being added to the favorite list, especially because it is a true lazy man meal. It is so, so easy. Of all of these, this was actually my favorite. It's so simple. You're taking burritos, cheese, and enchilada sauce. And I'm like, how have I never thought of this before? It is called a lazy man burrito enchilada, or a wet burrito, I guess. So you take your frozen burritos, you place those in your 13x9, you pour 2 cans of sauce over them, some shredded Fiesta cheese, and bake at 375 degrees for 30 minutes until bubbly and delicious. I just served this with some rice. It could not have been easier. Make sure to put your favorite in the comments below after you watch this video, just so that I know if I'm on the right page here, because it was so, so, so good, and it was so simple, especially for a busy night. So this has got to be a go-to. You got to try it. You can try any type of enchilada sauce or any type of frozen burrito that you like. It's also so cheap. Frozen burritos are very, very, very inexpensive.
I want to thank you so much for watching today. Make sure to click on the link in my description box to get your Flex-A-Spot standing desk today. And if you're looking for some more inspiration, go ahead and click on this next video. I know you're going to love it.
I was out of use. Now every day